Apollo space missions is arguably one of man's greatest and most illustrious scientific achievements, at least publicly. Everyone in the television watching world at the time watched the Apollo space mission, and Apollo 11's successful landing on the moon. It really is incredible to think, really, that just earlier on, in the early 1900s, the Wright brothers were experimenting with flying, and then it only took about 60-odd years to catch up, and then to develop a craft capable of not only blasting out of our orbit, but of landing someone on a surface 300,000 miles away from Earth's. Since Sputnik 1, the first man-made craft that was sent into space, it took only 11 years to catch up and actually send someone to the moon. Now, this has been probably the most widely watched and widely understood and widely scrutinised scientific mission achievement of all time. I can't really think of a more significant, publicly significant scientific achievement that raised so much interest, and because not only was it an achievement for science, but for technology, for mankind, for politics, for all sorts of different things. And inevitably, with such wide exposure, you're going to get skeptics and critics of the Apollo space mission, and that's why we have all these different conspiracy theories of the moon landing hoax. There are many different claims by moon hoaxers of certain obvious fraudulent activity or cover-ups and all sorts of things. So I'm going to focus on 7 particular claims by the moon hoaxers and have a go at really testing them and then having a look really to see if they are valid or justified. One of the most popular claims made by moon hoaxers is the erecting of the flag by Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the lunar surface. In the famous footage, you can see that the flag is indeed moving. It gives the illusion that it's been blowing in the wind. Now, the moon hoaxers rightly say, how could this be? If the moon lacks an atmosphere capable of creating any sort of climate or meteorological activity, therefore why does it look like the wind's blowing? Well, if you look at the footage carefully, you can see it only tends to blow or have any form of movement as the astronauts themselves have their hands on the pole. There's a small bar placed at the right angle of the pole across the landscape of the flag in order to hold the flag up, because obviously with there being no wind on the moon, how's the flag supposed to fly? And so it was essential in order to see the stars and stripes and really show a political triumph, if anything, to show the stars and stripes to be fully flying and standing proud. And the only way to do that is by putting a pole into it, because it's not going to stand up on its own. Another popular claim made by moon hoaxers, if you observe the photos and the film footage brought back from the space missions, there's a significant lack of stars in the pictures. Now, to anyone with any kind of knowledge in photography or video filming or anything like that, it's a fairly easy answer. The moon isn't particularly reflective, but if you're on it, it will be. Not to mention the white suits worn by the astronauts, the reflection of the Earth's light and the atmosphere of it. And also the equipment. It was all highly reflective. This is some footage I took of the moon on a particularly clear night. I moved the ND filter down as low as I could in order to try and limit the light exposure coming from the main object, which is the moon. And as you can see, there's no stars around. I challenge anyone to go out and take a picture of something as bright as the moon in the sky and get stars into it. The stars are not reflecting enough light and they're not emitting enough light to overpower the significant light reflection of the moon, and therefore remain invisible to the camera. One infamous claim that's going around all the conspiracy theorist websites at the moment, and one I'm asked about quite a lot, was one that was raised in a Fox documentary about the moon, that was suggesting about a moon hoax, and was analysing the footage and asking questions. And it's that of two supposedly different locations looking exactly the same, looking identical to each other. Now these were taken from the Apollo 16 mission, and they claim, as, that NASA said, and rightly they did, that the 2 bits of footage were shot on two different locations 2 days apart of the Apollo 16 mission. Now, if this were true, the conspiracy theorists would have something, at least. In the footage, John W. Young and Charles Duke, who are the astronauts, who are respected members of the NASA program, they were the ones on the lunar surface at the time, and they used 2 distinct communications.
I don't know if this will work or not, Charlie, but it couldn't pick a better spot. That is the most beautiful sight.
Now, unless we question the documentary filmmakers and the conspiracy theorists, we will never know whether the audio was dubbed over the footage to make it look like that, to purposely manipulate it. Let's assume that it hasn't been. Let's assume that it's a complete. It's presented as honestly as it was intended to be. And so what's the answer? Well, these 2 distinct communications are found in some other footage. We at scienceofreason.org, me and my co-founder, we did a bit of research into this. Very minor research into the NASA archives, and we find that not only did NASA make an error in judgment, which they did, which I believe they later recanted later on, but we find out we found some footage taken from what appears to be a different angle with both locations.
I don't know if this will work or not, Charlie, but it couldn't pick a better spot. Okay. God, you're just beautiful. That is the most beautiful sight.
If we then listen to the communications made, they are not made on 2 different days in 2 different locations. They are actually said just moments apart. Now, this can all be found at the NASA Archive website. Through a transcript of the communications, we find that they were just moments apart, these communications, and the footage does not break up at all. So this is a false claim made by the by the Fox documentary. I mean, who'd have thought that a Fox News documentary would mislead people? But you know, it is a significant claim that's made. Hold any validity by any means, and has been easily shown to be a false claim. The Van Allen belt is one of particular interest to the conspiracy theorists, and it's interesting if we think about it, because why is it of such interest? Well, the Van Allen belt is essentially 2 distinct belts, the inner belt and the outer belt, and these belts are radiation. The inner belt is made up of energetically charged electrons, and the outer belt is a collection of electrons and protons, and they are highly radioactive, and therefore it's thought that it would be very dangerous to travel through them, which if the moon landings happened, they would the rockets and astronauts would have gone through these belts to get to the moon. Definitely the inner belt. It's not known about the outer belt as such, but now these radiation belts are held together by the electromagnetic field of the Earth, and space shuttles don't go far enough for them. So with all this complicated science to the layperson, it contains both physics, astronomy, chemistry, all sorts of different scientific fields. Conspiracy theorists like to use this as they feel it puts them in the scientific arena, and also it's easy to argue that case with someone who may not be as knowledgeable about science or know much about the Van Allen radiation belt. So there's many ways to explain this, but I think what I'll do is I'll leave it to the discoverer of the Van Allen belt. In a recent Fox TV show which I saw is an ingenious and entertaining assemblage of nonsense. The claim that radiation exposure during the Apollo space mission would have been fatal to the astronauts is only one example of such nonsense. Now, this was claimed by one of the discoveries of the Van Allen radiation belts, Dr. James Van Allen.